How's it going, guys, and welcome back here for another episode on my YouTube channel. Hope you are all doing well and that you are ready to join me today on playing another session here on ggpoker, guys. Playing PLO 50, Rush and Cash. And we're jumping straight into the action on the right side, facing a double barrel with my 10-eye flush draw and a gutter. I'm gonna fold on the turn. And on table number 1, flop goes check, check on the turn. I could go ahead and check to check raise, blocking the king. But I think potting is also totally fine. Right side, easy fold. Ace jack 10-4. It's been a while, guys, that I made some content here. Definitely want to get back into it. And I thought a good way to start basically was to get going with kind of a play and explain, right? Just getting into the action, experience what it is to play this game. On the left against a limp, I mean, I don't mind raising, to be honest. On the right side, two tight players on my left. I'm gonna open, but this is definitely close. But the big blind is also really tight. I think that's fine. On the left, we flop a blocker with the 4. We have the 10s. I think I'm gonna start with a bet. Right side, pretty close, but we got a couple of tight players on my left, I think, so I don't mind open raising this. I'm gonna check on the turn on the left. We don't pick up equity or a blocker. My opponent didn't check raise the flop. I think he will check raise most of his strong hands still, but I'm gonna check. Table number 2, we flop an over pair and an open-ended straight draw, 1 club. Yeah, my opponent was not folding that hand. I think we can go either way here. I don't mind going for the bet, but if we get check raised, it's a little bit dicey. On the left side, SPR is around, what is it? 3.5. I think I'm just gonna pot with my hand. We have the nut flush draw, backdoor flush draw, and a gutter. And on table number 2, I am going to go ahead and I think I'm gonna check. On the left side, we're just gonna get it in. And on the right side, we are potting the nut straight. I don't think my opponent on the left has a queen at this point because he will jam that hand very often on the flop. Unfortunately, he didn't do it this time. And we don't do well here. Okay, this player also just has the straight, unfortunately. And we're splitting, folding on the left side. I do want to take a brief moment to take a look at PLO Trainer and analyze this spot a little bit more in depth. This is the same board, early position against a big blind, where we can see that the early position player bets on this flop 45.9% of the time. Now it means that we have a large checking range, right? And whenever this is the case, and whenever you see a frequency like this, like almost 50-50, it means that we generally have to be very selective with the hands that we are betting with. Now, if we take a look into our specific hand, which is King Jack 3. King Jack 3 is not part of our open raising range when we aren't double suited. So my pre-flop open raise in the first place was a mistake. However, if we take a look into a similar hand where we do have the single suited variation of this combo, we can see that we are betting King Jack 4, basically very similar to King Jack 3, 36% of the time. What is the pattern? Well, if we have a flush draw, which we don't have, we are pretty much always betting. That is not really a surprise, I would say. Now, if we remove the flush draw and we take a look into the other combinations in our range, we can see that we pretty much always go ahead and check back. Now, would that change if we would have the king of diamonds in our range? Well, we do have some bets with the king of diamonds, but we pretty much only choose the combinations where we do have the backdoor flush draw, because that adds up equity, it adds up fold equity, and overall makes our bet more powerful. We didn't have the backdoor flush draw, so my hand would have been a check back in theory. Now, in reality, that doesn't mean that betting necessarily is terrible. You might play against players who under check raise or who overfold in the big blind, and therefore betting more often, usually against a good amount of players, is a fine idea. Now, one thing to add here, if we would go ahead and bet and my opponent calls, let's take a look into a turn, a blank 3 in this case, which is similar to the blank 5, although the 5 is a little bit more dynamic in the sense. If we take a look into the same combination again, king, king, jack 4, if we have the flush draw, again, we are double barreling 100% of the time. If we don't have the flush draw, even with only the flush draw blocker and the backdoor missed flush draw, we're checking always. So the turn check is good, but on the flop I need to be more selective and generally check back my hand. Let's also pay some attention, guys, on the player pool, how we think we can make certain adjustments based on how the player pool is playing. Generally, I would say people are pretty tight in this pool. At least that is my perception. On the left side, I mean, not a great hand, of course, but I think I'm going to go for the call. This is the problem, right, with calling these type of hands, that you flop a non-nut flush draw and a gutter 5-way. Table number 2, we have an open. Very weird sizing on the left side by this player. I don't really like it. So many players in the pot with this SPR, like what is he trying to do? I think we're still going to call now, given the price. Check. And we have a splash pot on the table number 2. We do make a flush, but we are 3-way still. I mean, we could also bet fold something like, I don't know, like 4. If we get raised, it's quite an easy fold, I would say. It's kind of weird, but I'm still going to fold. And on the right side, I mean, we're just going to check. These splash pots, they generally play quite passive pre-flop. At least that's my experience. Just check and give up. On the left side, I'm going to make the call with ace king 5-5 against an under. They're going to open. This player plays relatively standard frequencies, I would say. It seems, at least. Not too tight. Not too loose. We flop the nut flush draw and the nut gutter. And on table number 2, I'm going to raise it up. On the left side, I'm going to call if he bets, or I'm going to stab if he checks. I'm going to go for half pot. It's sort of a default sizing. I think one of the things where we can make life easier for ourselves as poker players is to have like certain sizings in our game that we use. For example, stabbing in position on a board like this half pot. You can go different sizings, but like simplifying things isn't that bad overall. We turn an ace. Close, I would say. I'm gonna check. Now we check. We have some showdown value, and we are winning against the 7. And on the right side, three-way in position. We don't have a blocker or much equity, so we're just gonna check. Interesting that they check again. We don't have a club though. I'm gonna check one more time. The question now is how much showdown value does my 8 have if these players check again? But they don't, and now we're just gonna fold. Left side also a fold, of course. Okay. Very nice hand on table number 1. Let's look at the lineup here. We got a very loose player in the cutoff who makes the call. 46 VPIP so far. And then we have tighter players in the blind, but the button also is kind of loose, more loose passive. I'm going to check on table number 1. And table number 2 versus a half pot size bet. We're going to go ahead and check call, but we're not super happy. Table number 1 against this player, I'm going to call, but I'm not super happy, of course. Table number 2, we could bet small, sort of as a block bet. I don't think that's too bad, to be honest. And against this player again, it's not great, but the size or the size, I mean, it's not a great spot. We're checking again on the river. Yeah, we're gonna fold now. Yeah, turn is tricky there. Turn is definitely tricky. Fold. Beautiful hand on table number 2. We don't flop much. It's a 3-way pot. We are just going to go ahead and check fold. And table number 1. It's tempting. It's tempting. If this guy squeeze or 3 bets quite a lot, it seems. I'm still going to make the call. Not a great spot, but also the big blind seems to be kind of tight. A check by the out of position player. We are checking with a pair of queens. Beautiful turn. And he folds. Table number 2, definitely board where we have a betting range. My hand, not great, but we can sometimes bet here, I would say. He 3 bets aggressively. Easy fold, of course. But we unblock kings and queens, definitely hands that my opponent can have and fold against the bet. Table number 1, I would say generally a fold. Table 2 in the small blind, easy fold as well. And table number 1, ace 10, 9, 4. I mean, I'm going to play. This is not good enough to 3 bet, so we're just going to call. And I think I will just fold. On the flop. Will I? No, I'm going to call once. Yeah, the flop the price is so good and he can bet still kind of wide. He is also wide, it seems, but the fact that he bets into 2 opponents definitely makes his betting range a bit stronger, so maybe folding is fine. But with the ace, we also have some outs to improve to ace 9, basically. Table number 2. I will fold. Table number 1. I'm going to open raise here given the big blind and the cutoff seem to be really tight. This is not a GTO open. I'm going to check call the flop on the table 1. Very nice hand, ace, king, king 10. I'm gonna limp. Let's see if someone raises it up. There we go. I'm gonna raise on table number 1. And we're gonna get it in on table number 2. Ooh. 775. We river the jack. Let's see what he has. He did check back the flop. Can definitely have a 6. I think most players on the flop will bet 2 pair or better. Oh, look at this. Look at this, guys. What a very... queen, queen, 8-3. Interesting. So he decides to check, call, or to call my raise on the turn. Blocking the 3. Could make sense. And on the right side, we doubled up, which is nice. This is definitely the threshold of open raising under the gun, I would say. Ace, queen, 4, deuce. We are double suited, but it's obviously quite marginal. We have a couple of tight players on the table, right? And that helps open raising more often. Fold. Not great that we face a 3-bet, especially because he's short stacked. I mean, maybe we should even fold. I'm not sure. 9 hands only. I mean, we're double suited, right? Yeah, it's not great. Fold on the flop. On the left side, could be a hand to open if everyone folds. I'm gonna fold now, of course. I will open raise on the table number 2. Not now, but this player seems to be really tight. Let's make a note on this player. I wasn't done yet. Where's my note? Oh. Table number 1, I'm not sure. Probably a fold. Table number 2. I don't mind starting with a bet here. Against the race, I mean, question is, do we want to call or jam? I think I'm gonna jam actually. I'm not folding a turn, I would say. Middle pair, table number 1. Let's see, this guy has top pair and a flush draw. He wants to run it twice. Let's not do that. I'm gonna pot it on table number 1. I think we have the best hand at this point. That's not a great river. Okay, we do take it down, nice. Check, river. We can still win against hands like ace, king, queen, for example, but he will have a lot of spades in his range after calling a large bet, and we have an easy fold. So what happened here? This player decided to raise. Raise the flop, pair, gutter, flush draw, that makes sense. Pre-flop, it's too loose, you want to fold. Referring to this hand. Queen 9, 6, 4. But on the flop, I think it's fine. This is a fold. Table number 2, this is also a fold. Let me know, guys, if you want to see more of these live play and explains. I can also do some regular tables, by the way. Recording wise, I mean, this is very convenient to do Russian cash tables, and you can see a lot of hands. But at the same time, usually I play or advise to play rec tables. Definitely better, I would say. Fold, fold. But let's play a couple more hands. Table number 2, this is also a fold. This is a race. This player seems, for example, really tight. Give him the yellow tag. Table number 1, this hand could be a playable hand depending on what happens. Raise, I mean, now we're just gonna fold. Rainbow aces. Pair blocker, not flush draw blocker. This is one of those hand classes that play fairly aggressive on the flop. You are stacking a lot of blockers to your opponent's continuing range, which increases the chance he's going to fold, which is a good result for a hand that doesn't play necessarily great on turns and rivers, or in terms of like checking back, realizing equity, those kind of things. So fast playing often makes sense. Putting pressure directly on your opponent, basically. I will open raise this hand, ace, king, 6 deuce, even though the 6 high suit is there. And on the right side, I will call. This player seems to be quite tight. We are very deep versus the cutoff. Easy check fold. Yeah, being deep in position definitely is extremely valuable, because you can leverage your positional advantage in a deep stack situation more, basically. I don't mind going for a small stab here and see what happens. Easy fold. And let me know, guys, if you like the content. Give the video a thumbs up also, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I definitely plan to get back into creating more content again, basically now. So you can expect more videos. Table number 1. I'm gonna go for it actually. And global sit out. Next blind. I'm gonna bet on table number 2. And I will 3-bet on table number 1. A little bit dicey now if he raises, but with the pair and the second nut flush draw, we do have to call. And here we also have a very easy call. Check. I wonder what we should do. I think I'm just gonna fold. Table 1, kind of interesting. We have a pair and a gutter. My opponent checks. I'm gonna check, actually. Oh. Okay, he does fold. We would have made the straight. Okay, guys, that's gonna be it. Hope you enjoyed this session. Over and out. This is Luke, and I will catch you guys in the next one.